The first two questions are related, even the third, in fact, plays in. I can see the preoccupation, what's going to happen in the global geopolitical situation with the lining up. Today, the global geopolitical situation is a fragmented order. The world order of 45 doesn't exist. Okay, what Mr. Trump is doing, he's fragmented the system. So what will China, Russia, middle powers like Turkey, or European powers like France and others, I think you see it playing out. Number A, they don't like what Trump is doing. Okay, but they have to contend with Trump. They have to contend with America. But America itself is going through a domestic fulmination. It's almost like a civil war is playing out within America. And this is something also many people don't understand, because the rhetoric coming from America since the last 50, 60 years is, we are the greatest democracy. But I used to teach American Constitution and American politics in American universities to American students of your age or younger or older. And I said, look, my reading of American Constitution is that you were never founded as a democracy, you were founded as an oligarchy, a very elitist oligarchy. It was on the the classical Greek and Roman structures of government, where slaves are excluded, uneducated people are excluded, women are excluded. Okay. And basically, then America built itself up, and then, of course, the liberal strain comes in. How many constitutional amendments are there in the American Constitution? It's 250 years. About 24 or 25, I lost count after 22 or 23. First 10 took place in the first 30 days. So basically in 250 years or 249 years, if you discount the first year, less than 20. Okay? So it is a very difficult constitution to amend, technically, number one. So in a sense, you have the two sides always there. You have the conservative, the Republicans who want to build more on capital. Capital was built from slave labor. The American working class is perhaps the most hard-worked and the least paid in a sense. They have 15 days of holiday maximum a year. If they take off one day more, the employer cuts it from the salary. That's how the system works. Okay, so now you have a clash taking place within America. That has alienated the old world, the European powers. Within the old world, also clashes are taking place, right? There's a division there. So, number three, Russia and China seem to have converged together. There's a confluence of interest. They are directly linked to each other. China has built its infrastructure connectivity over land, apart from having demonstrated their ability to use the North Sea route. And just 2 months ago, they did a trial run, 6 ships carrying cargo across the North Sea in 6 days. And they said, I don't need the Indian Ocean, I don't need the Pacific. I'm going to go this way. So now, in a sense, the China, which is, I would say, I mean, could be debate, is practically already number 1B. If you say number 1, there's America and there's A, this is B. Because the Americans are not sure how much more the Chinese have. You know, that is one in the calculus. Iranians have been closely supported and linked by Chinese. When the period I was in China, I saw that. When Iran is suffering from sanctions from all over the world, it's the Chinese who leap in. Why? Because China is importing bulk of its, even in those days, in I was there 88 to 91. And the military technology, the nuclear technology was coming. Incidentally, nuclear technology, Iran, the Shah of Iran was encouraged to go in for nuclear technology when he was the emperor. That was something which happened in 1970. Okay. He started that project in 1971. Then the project was developing. So the biggest reactors that they were building is in the area which the Americans hit later. So it's something which the Islamic government, when it came, it continued with the process. When I was there between 1991 and 95, Soviet Union had collapsed. Remember, the Cold War ended. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the scientists who were in Uzbekistan and other places, Soviets had nuclear projects there, they were without jobs. Iranians hired scientists from these people. Ukrainians were there, also Iranian nuclear scientists. They paid them $100 or $200 a month. They were there, they were in a secure area, behind walls, and they kept developing nuclear technology in Iran. My personal assessment, now this is not based on empirical data, because my teaching says I must have empirical data, but sometimes intuitive data is much, it has not failed me to date. My intuitive data is that they are this close. In a few days, if they want, they can transition. And this is what the Americans don't know, how close they are. I mean, Trump would have hit Iran in the first presidency. He was held back by his own military. Okay. So this is a check and balance system now. And the same check and balance system, in my assessment, is also working within Iran. And people are inventive, they are ingenious. They find ways of circumventing. Okay. I believe Iran will do the same thing. I could be wrong. I could be absolutely, totally wrong. This revolution might go a different way, but my hunch tells me, no, it will not. In the end, the Iranian history, the Iranian way of thinking, the Iranian aversion to foreigners dominating them will come together. And the more the Americans push, the more the Iranians will come together. They dislike the mullahs, they don't like the mullahs' regimes, but they say, no, I don't want Americans to replace the mullahs. That will trump everything else. You see, the army is a loyal part of the state. Army will defend Iran whether it's X, Y, or Z attacking it. And if they don't, whether it's A, B, or C governing Iran, they are trained, they will defend Iran to the last blood. So that's number one. The question I just alluded to this, what is the IRGC do? The IRGC was formed after the 1979 revolution by Ayatollah Khomeini and his regime, because they did not trust the army. Iran had, at that time in 79, one of the biggest armies in the world, one of the best equipped armies in those days in the developing world. Iran was still a developing world, okay? But aspirations to modernity. The army stayed back. They would not fire on their own people. And that is the reason why the People's Revolution was able to, the Shah was forced to flee. Not unlike something that happens here also. It's a global phenomenon. Your patriotism, fueled and buttressed and enforced by your sense of historical dignity, pushes forces in a certain way. You have to understand that. And when that little line which is holding things together collapses, that's the day when all hell breaks loose. So IRGC is not going to rebel. I don't think so. Yes, it was meant to protect the regime, but it has been explained, as I understand, they have 4 different branches. They have the Army, Navy, and Air Force. They are parallel. But they all have autonomous, not interlinked commands. Okay? They have their own protocols, and they're very highly disciplined and efficient within their own structures. They, again, it's Iranian history and sense of Iranian pride, which will say, if I do this, I'm actually destroying myself. They will not move. So in the end, the people coming together to preserve Iran will prevail. In the last, you asked about China and what will the reaction and with China and the other countries. Part of your question is also related to that. What will Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and others do? Turkey has, in a sense, distanced itself from America. It's still part of NATO, but it was denied European Union membership. So, but it has not relinquished its NATO hold. And it is one of the more powerful powers within NATO from Europe. This the Europeans are very well aware of. During one of the previous conflicts, Turkey denied its airspace for American planes to refuel. Okay. Turkey has developed close relations with China. Which is the power? Historically, Saudi Arabia and other Gulfs were against Iran. What was China's role in bringing them together, and when did that happen? It was China which brought Saudi Arabia and Iran together to shake hands, have a deal. They are now, in a sense, that regional and global thing, they are there. Yeah, Saudi Arabia will continue playing with the Americans, but this link, which was always fragile or unreliable, has been sealed. What has China's actions been? It's not saying anything. It's just waiting. China doesn't actually physically move armies. From 1949 or even earlier, it has not done that. The closest it was in its own region, and even there it got rebuffed by Laos and Cambodia. Okay. China wants to be number one. It will not spend its resources in fighting to lose that number one place. Others are fighting, they're losing resources, they are being weakened. Why should I lose it? Let them fight. I will go by default to become number one. Have I covered all the aspects? Oh, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and where does Bangladesh come in? Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have also done a deal. There are talks that Pakistani troops will go to Gaza to do the policing. I'm not sure that Pakistan's internal politics will strike that. Okay. And the Saudis are part of that chain which the Americans were trying to build, but they held back at the last minute. In the end, that conflict of the religious self and the state self will come to play there. How it will play is still difficult to say. But I doubt it, because otherwise the Americans would already have taken action. American hesitancy is basically based that they don't know everything about Iran yet. Part of the sanctions is, yes, they denied Iran space. But the other side is, because they denied Iran space, they prevented themselves from getting to know what the Iranians were doing and how much they had gone forward. There are two parts of it. আমি তোমার সাথে কথা বলবো না, তোমাকে কারোর সাথে কথা বলতে দেবে না, but in the process আমি তো তোমার সাথে কথা বলছি না, তোমার মাইন্ডের ভিতরে কি হচ্ছে, তোমার ঘিলুর ভিতরে কি করছো, you don't know. That is what the strategic thinkers are awarely. So how far they will go. Number 3, and this American strategic analysts in the last consistently they are agreed. Trump does not want to engage in long drawn wars which will deplete American resources, which will diminish American capacity as number one power in the world. And America, it will divide the Republican Party. Make America great again is predicated that we are not going to spend our resources elsewhere fighting other people's war. The more money you spend on war, the less you spend on economic development, and American economy is already the people are beginning to suffer. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, Mr. Trump is the great disruptor. So nobody can really predict which way he will go. But he's a businessman, and he's been a successful businessman. So even if it is only business instincts, his own business survival will dictate or triumph over any other considerations. Bangladesh and Iran. Maybe I can take your question and then lump it together with Bangladesh and Iran. Okay, let me take these two, then I'll finish with the Bangladesh-Iran thing. The Iranian identity, the Persianness is a constant. Then the question comes, what happens when the Islamic identity comes in? When I was doing my study, and continued it in my second term, when the mullahs were then totally in power. Okay. So between 1969, 71 and between 91, 95, the two periods I have in Islam, two different periods, two different regimes, and two different formats. But one thing which struck me was the Arab invasion, the Islamic invasion of Iran was another invading regime. Persianized, it would become Persianized. And that proof I witnessed in the 4 years, because I went there 3 days, 4 days later, it was just before a major Iranian festival, which is not an Islamic festival. It is an old Zoroastrian festival which incorporated into Persian during the time of the Sassanians. They would light a bonfire on the last Wednesday. It's called Akhri Chaharshambe, last Wednesday of the year. Every community on the streets, they gather together, they light a bonfire with wood or whatever they get, then they jump across the waterfall. And it's a highly symbolic act. It's there in the Sanskrit literature, in the Aryan culture, in pre-Vedic India also. Fire is always a spirit of purification. The Zoroastrians do not worship fire. They worship Ahura Mazda, the one true God. You can call the one true God by any other names, Allah or God or Yahweh or Jehovah or Ahura Mazda. It's the one true God. Fire is a manifestation of God, as fire was a manifestation to Moses. Okay. So there is a continuity there. Now, the Persians, the Iranians were Persians first and then Islamic. So I saw it, I asked the driver, Mr. Dasti, why? I thought mullahs would stop it. He said, no sir, the mullahs try to stop for several years. The more they stop, the more we do. Very simple answer, but it explained a volume about how the Persian approaches. He was just about to have his second child. So I said, what name? So the first child was a very Arabic name, born just after the revolution. The second was about to be delivered soon after we went, or she had just been born. What name? Highly Persian. Persian meaning not modern Persian, going back to old Persian. So I said, you didn't give her Islamic name? He said, no sir, all people in Iran today name the children Persian names. That's another assertion of your Persian identity. So in a sense, what I thought was that the Islamic regime had become Persianized, just like other invaders had. Like the Greeks had, the Mongols had, the Turks had, the Afghans had. Everyone had come, the chador had embraced it, and then they leave. So now what you have is Islam with Persian characteristics. Like the Chinese used to tell me, no, we don't have communism. We have Marxism, Leninism with Chinese characteristics. That is how they differentiate it. And then they have the Shiaism. It's very distinct from the rest of the Muslim world. Okay, there's about 200 million, 300 million maybe. I don't know the exact figures of Shias. All mostly concentrated. Shias are in the center of Iran. The periphery is all non-Shia. They're all Sunnis. They're different races, different genetics. Arabs, Kurds, other tribes, Baluch. So that's one. Bangladesh and Iran. Traditionally, we had excellent relations. Our only oil refinery that existed in 71 was geared to Aghajari crude, which is the heavy crude. When the war happened and suddenly we lost access to that, we couldn't refine petroleum because the crude oil, all the oil we were getting was the light, sweet Arabian crude, not the Aghajari crude. That was one of the reasons we went to Iran and we persuaded them to resume supplies. Now we have a mix, still insufficient, I think. We had excellent relations with Iran right up till, I would say, the early 80s. Or probably early 80s. When I went there, I was faced with some hostility. So Iranian, the biggest weapon they have is the language. Their language, if you don't understand it, they will give you a little kernel, but the kernel has a huge covering around it. And if you don't understand the language, you will pick something else but not the kernel of what they are telling you. This is the biggest weapon. Now, in their sense, they said, look, with Bangladesh, we had good relations. But after Zia went, the relations we cannot trust. The Gulf War mediation role was being played by Bangladesh with General Zia, the President Ziaur Rahman leading it. And they trusted him as a fair mediator. He understood the importance because Iran was still a very powerful country. Okay, the oil resources, we are dependent on them. When his successor came, he shifted to Iraq, mortal enemies of Iran. And that trust broke. So I had to struggle for the first year to re-establish trust. So we have caved into pressure from America and the West. I personally believe, although I don't think anybody will listen to me, that we should continue our relationship on a different track. The Indians do that. Relations are based on proximity, relations are based on some things you share, and I think we have both. But our relations are marred by non-proximal powers telling us what to do and what not to do. Our relations have to be based on our own national interest. Our relations, I would say, follow the Iranian pattern and try to be self-reliant. Try to build up your own industry. Okay, this market will suffer. What is the alternative market? How can I target the 2+ or 3 billion market in Asia, in my own continent, and not go after markets in Europe and America? But we are not thinking. So I'll end there. This is a discussion, this can go on quite a lot.